Hope everybody's doing well. My name is Ahmed Abdul Wahab, and I'm the CEO of Next Arabia, as mentioned, a boutique innovation advisory firm helping big corporates and government entities to launch and manage innovative new ventures. The topic of today is embedded finance driving banking as a service? So as more and more companies are offering financial services in their offering, such as opening bank accounts, wallets, payment, loans, savings, etc. As more of these companies and ecosystem embed financial services into their offering, banks should use this opportunity to figure out what is their role in this new model. In this session, we're going to unbundle what embedded finance and banking as a service is, and we're going to talk as well about the impact. But first, I want to start with you, audience. I have 4 quick questions for you. How many of you know what embedded finance is? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you know what banking as a service is? All right. How many of you believe that embedded finance is actually driving banking as a service? That's good. And what about how many of you believe that embedded finance is not driving banking as a service? Okay. So at the end of the session, I will ask the last 2 questions again to see whether you had a change of heart on that topic. So please help me to welcome my panelists. But before we start, just some logistics about the session. It's going to be a 30-minute session, and it will be interactive. So I want you to really ask questions, not at the end of the session, but rather in the beginning in the beginning of the session and the middle of the session. So not just at the end. Whenever you have a question, just raise your hand. And when you do so, do 3 things. Number 1, state your name. Number 2, your company. And the most important, your short and simple question. Not a comment or statement, short and simple question. Okay? Are you ready? I can hear you. Are you ready? Yes. I can hear you. Are you ready? Yes. All right. Now you're ready. Please help me to welcome our panelists. Sahil he's the CIO of Gulf Arab Bank. Please give him a big hand. Hilda, she's the CEO of Pesesha. Please help me to welcome her. And Mr. Kamal, he's the CEO of Little Cap Services, one of the key sponsors of the event. And last but not least, we have online is Mr. Omaru. He is the CEO of AI Colors. Hello, Dr. Omaru. Are you with us? Are you with us?
I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excellent.
Can you hear me all right?
Okay, excellent. We can hear you. Thank you very much. Please sit down. So we're going to start with Hilda first. Otherwise, I would have problems with my wife. So ladies first. Hilda, if you could briefly introduce yourself and give us your take what embedded finance is, and then later on we're going to talk about banking as a service, and then we're going to try to merge both together. But let's stay first about embedded finance. But just introduce yourself, your company, and your stake in embedded finance.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. To talk about what I believe is going to be the future of fintech. That's embedded finance. And before I talk about what embedded finance means in my world or Pesesha's world, just introducing myself, Hilda Mora. I'm the CEO and founder of Pesesha. So Pesesha means financial enabler in Swahili. Mm-hmm. So Pesa and Zesha. Zesha means enable. Pesa means money. And that's exactly what we do. We provide financial enabler infrastructure to enable small businesses to be financially included. And so we've been doing this for the last 5 years, evolving this infrastructure, which we are now calling the embedded finance infrastructure, which takes a lot of time, work and effort. It's a lot of hard things on the line. And I must say that building an embedded finance business is hard. I need to start there before I talk about what it is. So what is embedded finance and what exactly do we do at Possession? So embedded finance in our world is where we bring, financial services, to the underserved, businesses or people who will not be able to access credit, and combine it or integrate it in the non-financial world. Mm-hmm. I'm really trying as much as possible not to use technical words.
Excellent.
Because I'm a techie, so I can get very technical to what that really means with APIs and all these things, but I'm trying as much as possible not to confuse the audience and assume that everyone is coming from a developer background. So just to summarize, it's really integrating financial services with non-financial services, infrastructures or processes. And now I'll go to what we do at Possession. So what we do is we've built a lending infrastructure that allows us to, now connect those financial services with non-financial businesses. And really what that means is we've built an infrastructure that allows us to do that very seamlessly without changing how the current workflows of the non-financial services work or non-financial organization work. Mm-hmm. So I'll give an example. One of our biggest partners is Twiga Foods, who I'm very sure almost all of us in the room know them. How many of us don't know Twiga Foods? Okay, so we all know.
Probably in the wrong room if somebody would raise their hand.
Exactly. We know them for bananas. And so basically what we do with Twiga is we fully integrated our services and our infrastructure with Twiga. And a merchant or a vendor for Twiga, instead of going to Marikiti at 4 a.m., the only thing they need to do is to go to the Twiga app and select that they want to buy the crates of bananas through credit as a mode of payment. And at the point of sale, when they choose credit, they are speaking to Possession. So we facilitate that credit and immediately credit score them real time with all the data we have about them, including the data from Twiga and how they've been transacting with them. And then we are able to give them a credit score, a loan to we buy the products for them. And then the following day in the morning at 4 a.m., Twiga delivers the crates of banana. It can't get that easier in terms of how the current world should be in enabling that small retailer with access to credit.
That's amazing, and I have several follow-up questions, but we're going to do it later on. Specifically, as actually banks started with it a long time ago, and then somehow they became bank. I will not ask you if you're going to become a bank now, but I'm going to ask you later on. Kamal, if you could briefly introduce yourself and as well little. Everybody knows little, but if you could explain it from an embedded finance perspective, yeah, that would be great.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So my name is Kamal, and as I was introduced, I'm from Little Cab. So there are certain things I want to introduce me in a different way. So we started as Little Cab, but we are no longer Little Cab. We are Little App. When we started Little, the domain was little.co.ke because we were operating here. Then when we expanded, the domain became little.africa. We further expanded, and now it has become little.global because we also now started operating in Asia. The day I think we were taken to Mars, maybe we will do little.universe, but as we speak, we are little.global. Little started as a ride-hailing app, but now we have close to 27 to 30 different services. You can order food and deliveries and groceries and entertainment and health and payments, and every single thing is inside there. Now, when you put up all those things and integrate to finance, I think somewhere down the line we are talking about embedded finance. And as the discussion goes, obviously I'll give my views and my ways of thinking how the embedded finance should be. But for now, it's Little, not Little Cab.
Excellent. Sahil, if you could briefly introduce yourself and as well your understanding of embedded finance. Banking as a service you're going to talk about later on, but what is your take on it?
Thank you. Good afternoon once again. My name is Sahil Arya. I'm CIO and Head of the Banking Technology and Digital Transformation at Gulf African Bank. Quite a good topic. Embedded finance, actually, it has been for a while. There are many, banking services when you provide through different platform. And especially on the digital space, you have like mobile banking, internet banking. And whenever the customer you have to maintain, they want to utilize their bank account to pay for those services. Whether it could be not little cab, paying to the little cab, or taking a financial loans or anything extra. Those things, they used to come to the banking facilities, whether it is a branch or whatever. Yeah. Nowadays, the things has changed. Like Pazesha, what they are saying, they are targeting with the Twiga food, and the farmer can, whenever they need to have financial services or credit, they've targeted, they go to that platform and they seek for the credit. What we do as a bank, saying bank is having the core business is financing, and saving product. Those are the core businesses of the bank. And we partner with them to provide those financing facilities through this platform. So we do our own business as a banking, but in addition to that, we also partnered with other fintechs and service providers where our services can be, made available to the customer as well through this channel. And this is what embedded finance is. When you talk about utilities payment through the bank app, when you go to your banking app, or whatever the bank you are, and you're doing the banking utilities, those are called like a platform banking, where you're partnering with that. But any non-financial, like Pazesha or Little, or recently we launched Halal Paisa as well, we are not directly offering the credit facility to Sharia, the person who is looking for the Sharia compliant financing. Yeah. We partnered with Safaricom and we were providing financing. So this is again partnering with the telcos whose customer are looking for a credit facility. We are providing first finance. So these are embedding. There is a non-financial, there are financial, we are combining together. And that's how we are providing banking services to them.
Yeah. With model in a simple way, you become, I don't want to call it back end, but they are your front end, you become the back end.
Exactly.
Which is, having this discussion 20 years ago would have been strange because the banks are always the one in the front end, not in the back end. We're going to talk about more detail how it actually works and how specifically your bank deals with it. Omaru, if you could briefly introduce yourself and give us a quick download about of your company specialized in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, and what's your take when it comes to embedded finance?
Thank you, Ahmed. It's great to be here. I wish I could be there in person, but it's great that we can have technology to connect us. So I'm Omaru Maruatona. I'm the CEO and founder of iKillers. iKillers, like Pazesha, is a 5-year-old company. We started in Australia, but are now headquartered in Singapore. So what iKillers specializes in is we have a product, and this is an API security product. What our product does is it monitors inbound API traffic to detect security threats. What really attracts us to the world of embedded finance or fintech at large is that, fintech typically has, what we would classify as, high volume, high frequency, high value API traffic, which means that, in terms of monitoring APIs for security and for fraud, that's the best place to start. So we've been in the fintech space, since the company started, to a point where in 2020, we partnered with a government department in Singapore to help identify some frameworks around API security monitoring. At the end of our work, at the end of that partnership, Singapore produced what I believe to be the very first API security monitoring guidelines. And so we're proud to have been a contributor to that work. We've been embedded in the fintech space for that long. So our relevance in embedded finance is that somebody mentioned APIs, right? So typically you find that the technological landscape now is just that we're working with components that are developed by different providers, and these components connect through APIs, and they communicate with the end user through APIs. So API security has become more important, I think, than ever before, particularly in the financial space. So that's our relevance, and like everybody else, hopefully I can get to talk about the domain, what we're seeing, bring some good contrasts to what you're seeing in Kenya, but also in the rest of Africa. Our domicile is this part of the world, and so most of our insights would be from this region. But obviously, Africa is a very important part of our business. I was born in Africa, so there's many connections there. But I'll stop here. Ahmed, I'm happy to hand over to you. It's great to be here.
Excellent. It's wonderful to have you. Let's talk about banking as a service. Hilda, you mentioned that if I listen to you clearly, what you're actually providing is banking as a service, isn't it?
I don't know whether to say yes, because
we have a banker here on the stage.
and we're not a bank, and we don't want to become a bank. We are basically, what you'll say in your world, providing, digital banking, and providing services, financial services to people who've not had it before, but doing it in a way that allows us to open up our infrastructure to the rest of the world to integrate, different value adds or offerings as well into it. So open banking, I don't want to introduce new terms because then you will have to explain to people what open banking is. Yeah. But I mean, essentially what we are doing for us is, providing, financial services, to different non-financial companies that will not be able to do it themselves because one, they don't have the infrastructure to do that. And so we bring our infrastructure, which, as I said, we've built this for the last 5 years to be where it is. And now we can be able to integrate with these institutions that are actually now able to, bring the blurry aspect of the traditional players and the banks and basically close that loop of access to credit, especially for the underserved SMEs or the underserved consumers. And so the way we do it is then we partner with institutions, and then they enable that credit to their consumers or to their partners.
Institutions, that means banks or?
No. I mean value chain partners.
Okay.
So supply chain institutions, anyone who's working with a small business. So imagine, supply chain, imagine, what do you call them? Mamambogas, if I would call them, anyone who has a network of those people. The informal businesses, where are they going? They cannot be able to access credit from banks. And so they come in and tap into this infrastructure, which allows them with choice, convenience, and at the same time, the ability, to grow because they now have access to credit for the first time.
Excellent. And then if I just go a little bit more detailed, and that means you're not just providing the infrastructure, but you're also providing as well the financial service itself, the money.
Absolutely.
So what it means is in the older days when we need to go to a bank, we don't have to go anymore to a bank. So you become a bank.
I will not accept that.
I was doing a presentation a couple months ago talking about bank has no future, but banking is the future. Is that correct?
Fully agree.
Excellent. Kamal, what is your take when it comes to banking as a service? And are you actually providing banking as a service?
So if you look at it, as you said, banks may not have a future, but banking has a future. And it's the financial services, I think, is making up the banking. So if you look at it, I think anything...
I'm very nervous, I know.
Oh, that's okay.
I think anything that we do today, all the way from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go back to bed at night, everything that we are doing is exchange of certain things between us. And in that exchange, finance is so embedded because it's a token of transfer that allows us to get those services. And the finance has become just the way, Stanchart has written, rewiring the DNA in banking. I think the finance, actually, the DNA of finance is actually changing. So let me give you an example. We have close to about 100,000 drivers that are providing the services. So when you order a little cab, the nearest driver around you, we pick it up and he gives you the service. Now when he gives you the service, against his services, he is supposed to get some money. Now, if this is a corporate ride, if a corporate is taking that service or he is paying through a credit or a debit card where he doesn't get the money gets into his wallet. Now, once the money gets into his wallet, he needs to withdraw that money. Now, it has become so difficult for us to now go to the driver and say, now the money is there, go to a bank, go to M-Pesa, go to do this, all that. It becomes extremely difficult for us. So we need to embed the financial services in the app itself. So today when a little driver picks you up, he has access to his money like this. The money can be in his wallet, he can transfer that money somewhere. So much so, and this product is really picked up for us, is what these drivers are saying, that every time I take a ride of 1,000 shilling, 100 or 50 shilling or 10 shilling of that 1,000 shilling ride, put it on my savings account. So all that happens so seamlessly inside the app. The driver doesn't know the terminology called embedded finance, but he is actually using embedded financial services. And behind all that, we are providing banking as a service, because everything at the end is banking. So as much as, as she says, she doesn't want to become a bank, but I want to become a bank.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for saying it. She also said it indirectly.
Maybe she's worried about the regulators.
Regulations.
Regulations, etc.
So as we get, what the services that we are offering are more or less a part of the banking services that we are offering. So we want to become a bank at some point, but it would be a virtual bank, it would be a bank that has completely rewritten the DNA in banking. But that's the plan. I think every one of us is doing banking. It's just that they don't have a banking license.
Sahil, automatic. What is your take? I mean, in the good old days, your competitor were the other banks. But today, who are you actually a competitor?
That's right, actually, and that is where the banking as a service is coming out. Like the way Hilda or Kamal has mentioned about it, they are coming as a banking services. The key services of savings or credit, what is offered through non-financial or non-bank banking institutions. This is where we have to be also up to the game, right? So what we do is we partner, we collaborate with fintechs. And those guys were, as Hilda, of course, it was regulations or somewhere where you don't do credit or financing some services. This is where banking come into picture. We have regulated, we have the licenses where we can provide the financing directly. If any, like Mama Boga example was given here. So those things, banking as a service, bank are able to provide. And what they gain it from this, of course, there is additional stream of revenue which comes apart from their mainstream, that is coming from the other side when you collaborate with such companies. Second thing is we also understand the insight of customers, like what the customer needs. So that is what helps us to improve our services as well. So we can retain our customers and we can provide services through our platform as well. So they can be engaged and retained.
Let me follow a question on that. What you're saying is that banks need and are significantly transforming. Where in the older days, the bank was in the middle of the whole ecosystem. Everybody has to come to the bank. But now bank is just one player of the ecosystem. Not only that, it might become just a minor player because it moves more into creating ecosystems, like what both of the speakers was mentioning it. Because both of them are creating ecosystems, right? Where the bank is not anymore in the middle, but the customer is in the middle. So how can banks, not just your bank, but overall, how can banks do the success with this transition, considering the heavy IT history and the bureaucracy and everything that banks have? So how can banks transition into this new model that is happening?
As you said rightly, customer is the center of everything. Yeah, and today's the need of customer is evolving. For example, I was just checking out a cinema tickets, okay, and there was a way where you can, if you don't have money at that point of time, something called BNPL is there. You can take it, but there's something added on top of it that is called Save Now and Pay Later. So that is another, which is also part of embedded finance as well. So what is happening is these customers, they wanted to utilize, the financing services at that point of time to consume that particular service. In this case, the ticket I'm buying. So the same thing, it can be utilized. If somebody who doesn't have a bank account or who doesn't have the funding that point of time, they can utilize that credit facility, and that's how it can be facilitated. So that is what I wanted to say.
I would like to get Omaru in. Omaru, are you with us?
Yes. I'm here.
Very good. So we were just talking about the move from the old-fashioned ecosystem to the new-fashioned ecosystem, that banks become more, let's say, a player rather than the player. What is your take when it comes to banking as a service? What's your take, and what kind of recommendations would you have for entrepreneurs that want to enter into the segment? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, look, I think just listening to Sahil, right? I think the one thing he says that I totally agree with is, the customer has become the center. I think regulation has mixed up the game a little bit. Hilda spoke about open bank, which, the more you view different regions, starting with EU, they were the first to introduce open banking, where the idea was to open up the banking infrastructure such that the banks no longer control the data, the infrastructure, and the services. I think what Sahil said about the customer, we're seeing now a creativity, I guess, guided industry where if you've got a unique product, a product that the masses need, they're going to go for it. And now that the bank is no longer the core part of that infrastructure, they slowly, some people call it disruption, others call it revolution, but the power is diminishing, and we're seeing new players come through. So in terms of, recommendations, I think one of the facts that speak volumes is right now that the statistics between the unbanked and the people with mobile devices, there are now many, many more people with mobile phone devices than there are people with formal bank accounts. And what that means for small companies, innovative companies is, obviously there is that market of people who don't have the legacy of, an institutional bank behind them. And therefore, if you were to set up a new banking model, those are the people you'd start with, because, they have a less chance of, moving to the normal, formal, infrastructure. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, I don't think the advantage that banks have now or have had for a long time, I don't think it'll be easy. It'll just easily dissolve. I think it's going to take a lot of innovating to really, totally say that the banks are irrelevant. They still very much are relevant.
Today.
today. Yeah.
Excellent. We have 2 more minutes to go. Just briefly, please, if you could, each one of you give your take on what's the future? What's the future of banking as a service? Embedded finance, what we've learned is a key driver of banking as a service. How do you see the future of banking as a service?
I think every company eventually will become a fintech, whether they like it or not. Mainly because of the nature of embedded finance, which has transformed and brought the new wave of revenue streams that people never had before. When we embed and integrate with the supply chain partners, they are also making money out of that integration, right? So we provide credit, we make interest income, and we are able to share that as well with them. So we're starting to see, at least in our space, most of these partners that we're working with, even when they're not fintechs, they have basically embraced fintechs into their business model, because again, if you look at an FMCG business, it has very small margins. And so how else do you grow and build your other revenue streams to survive? Embedded finance. So the future is going to be every company is going to become a fintech and not a bank. And so what that means is look for new revenue streams. They will, consolidate. We're going to start to see more consolidations, maybe between banks and fintechs, which we have seen some banks actually start a fintech arm within the bank or outside the bank, which really becomes very complex in how they operate and work together to build solutions. And then lastly, I think for the other factor of, just innovating for the consumer, I think it's going to become, we're not going to be the ones to decide. It's going to be the consumer to decide. And so if the consumer is going to decide and looking for choice and convenience, then it's going to end up being, every company has to think about that, and it's definitely going to be these consolidations.
Excellent. I love the way Hilda said everybody will become a fintech company. It also happened to me that the fintech bug hit me, so it started end of last year, together with a partner, a fintech company. We did not even know that this is a fintech until somebody called us, oh, you are a fintech. What are we? Fintech. So they're providing advanced salary for employees. So I love the way you said it. Everybody will be a fintech, whether you like it or not.
Sorry, just to conclude. So what does that mean, at least for us as Pesesha?
The organizer, they hate me already because we are over time.
Yes.
But don't worry about it.
So we've built the rails. We've built the rails and the infrastructure. So come and build it on top of us. Why do you need to rebuild it and reinvent the wheel? So we've built the rails. Come and be the fintech that you want to be.
Excellent. Kamal, how do you see the future?
The future, I think, looks like all the banks will have to become a service provider. That service provider will not just be limited to providing the money services, but also every other services that brings in the customer. Because as you said, I think the customer is at the center.
Yeah. Excellent. Sahil, how do you see your own future?
I think I'm not afraid. As you said, banking is going to stay, not the bank. That's okay. Another thing is, as a customer, as I was mentioning, is the centric. It's a win-win for customer actually. If you see, whether it is a brick and mortar or the digital bank or whatever you say in that case. But ultimately, even these fintechs or any other non-financial institutions who are serving the customer, ultimately customer who is winning, they are getting the service at a cost which they can, what they want at the point of time itself, they are getting it. Yeah. So that is where the whole thing comes out. So in future, I think, of course, this is going to happen because bank also has to collaborate and sustain themselves as a business as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Omaru, what's your take? What's the future?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, I think I agree with Hilda, but I would say every company would have to be a tech company, right? But I also agree with Kamal that it's a win for the customer. It's a win for liberating small businesses, innovative businesses. I think that's what the future looks like. And obviously, security is becoming more and more paramount. I mean, right now, what could easily undermine a successful infrastructure is a security breach. So I love that, there's choice for the customer, and then for us, our relevance keeps getting more and more enhanced.
Excellent. So just to conclude, want to conclude the same as the way I started, asking you a very quick question. How many of you know now what embedded finance is? All right. How many of you know now what banking as a service is? Excellent. And how many of you believe that embedded finance is driving banking as a service? All right. And the last question, how many of you don't believe that embedded finance is driving banking as a service? Excellent. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the session.